Well, hello and welcome. I'm Kyle Peterson from VisibleThread. I lead our customer success team here. And what our team tries to do is work as strategic partners with our customers, get to know their context, get to know their processes, is their pain in their day-to-day working lives, and then kind of throughout that process, weaving storytelling into that. And that's why we're here today. Proposal managers are obviously keenly aware of the power of storytelling within proposals. And so through my kind of time here on the team, I've gotten to know Marcia and Mona from Cherokee Federal and have really gotten to know their thoughtful and systematic approach to proposal management. And that's what they'll be walking us through here today. So they're the main event. So I won't keep this introduction any longer than it needs to. In terms of logistics, if you have any questions that you'd like to be raised during the Q&A period, please do use the question box that you see on your screen. I'll try and get through as many of those as I can at the end of the session. And then to start, I'll actually be asking two kind of biographical questions of the group, just so that the audience and Marcia and Mona can understand kind of who's here and where do they sit within the proposal ecosystem. So without further ado, the first question to the audience, all you have to do is click the circle that best describes where you fit. Obviously, it's not always black and white, but to the greatest extent possible, where does your organization fit in the hierarchy? And once we get kind of a critical mass of responses in, we can take a look at the results, and there's one more after that. Okay, let's take a look. So kind of as suspected, a bit of a mix, certainly a majority in the prime contracting space, that makes sense, but 50-50 is obviously very relevant as well. And so, as we get into it, you can see how this process is relevant across this ecosystem. So one last question, and then I will hand it over to Marcia and Mona. And proposal management process is always kind of an interesting, loaded question. We want to keep it just pretty simple, yes or no. Realize a lot of people kind of do modified processes as well. Just want to see where people are at in terms of how their organization approaches winning business. People are being a little more thoughtful on this question, it looks like. Okay, let's take a look. Interesting. Well, that makes good sense. Okay, great. Well, having said that, Marcia and Mona, thank you. Welcome. Really appreciate your time, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kyle. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and join our friends and colleagues across the federal government contracting sector here. Working closely with VisibleThread, as Cherokee Federal has been doing for about the last year. We'll go into a little bit of how our relationship got started, but for you to understand kind of who I am, who we're representing, Mona and I support the Cherokee Federal organization, which is the federal contracting arm of the Cherokee Nation tribe. I've worked for Cherokee Nation for 7 years, going on 8 years now, and I lead the proposal department for Cherokee Federal. In the time that I've been here, we've grown from a handful of small LLCs to a large organization. We started with 3 proposal managers, myself included, and now as the director of the department, I have a team of 12. And we're continuing to grow and expand every year. And as we do that, we look for new opportunities for enhancements and improvements to our proposal process. We run a Shipley shop, just like a lot of folks do. But there's always opportunities for improvement, for growing the department, and for using tools and resources to maximize those efficiencies. So that's what I'm looking for right now in my current role as Senior Director for Proposal Operations at Cherokee Federal, is really to make sure that our organization has the best tools and resources at its immediate disposal to enhance the team that we have, to continue to grow. And obviously, as a tribally organization, our revenues go back to the Cherokee Nation tribe, which of course is a very worthwhile perspective for somebody in this industry. It's so great to have the opportunity to sit here and talk with folks that we've worked with in the past, that we've teamed with before. I saw some friends from Indian country, which makes me really happy, and some friends from other organizations that either we've collaborated with along the way, or maybe we're frenemies in the government contracting space. But we're always looking for ways to improve, and I'm always the type of person where, if there's something that can help somebody do their job better, it's worth advocating for. So I really do thank VisibleThread for having invited Mona and I to participate. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mona real quick so that she can introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. I have been with Cherokee just shy of 4 years. My background was very varied. I think Marcia has an even mix of us that were proposal managers from the year aught, and those of us for whom it's a next career. And after selling for 15 years and working as a tech writer for 4, I kind of accidentally got into proposals, loved it, and have been doing proposals ever since. I find VisibleThread to be a really useful tool, and I'm excited to share that with you guys this morning.
I'm happy to have you on the team, Mona. So we'll talk a little bit about who's Cherokee Federal, because, that's us. Promote ourselves a little bit, but really we want to get down to, what are best practices in the proposal process? And that's universal. It's going to really apply to any organization, big or small. It's a modifiable, practice in proposal management. So there's definitely ways of adjusting it. And we've had to learn that as a tribal organization. We are a compilation of small companies created into a very large organization. So the mission of Cherokee Federal, as representing Cherokee Nation business, our tagline, building, solving, serving. We're building solutions. We're solving complex challenges for almost any federal organization inside the United States government. And we're serving our nation's mission globally. Cherokee is located in 26 countries across the globe. I think we're in all 50 states. That comes and goes as the contract year moves on. But we have a great deal of growth and expansion across our organization. We work with at least 60 federal clients. I know we have representative contracts in every federal agency and at the cabinet level, and obviously some sub-agencies within that as well. Our companies run the gamut. We're 8A small businesses. We're tiny, brand new 8As, and then we're full and open, large competitive companies as well. And we span the gamut of capabilities in that we have construction, engineering, consulting, health, and technology focus areas and capabilities inside of our companies. So we really are an expansive organization and an expanding organization inside of Cherokee Federal. That's the brand that we represent ourselves under, but each one of our individual companies carries its own past performance, prepares its own proposals, and runs through all of its contracts management as an individual entity. And really what we're doing, obviously, as part of the Cherokee Nation businesses is contributing back to the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. One of the things that I've always said as part of being, involved in a tribally owned organization is that the profits that we win as part of our proposal activities go back to the people of the Cherokee Nation. And it's a very important mission for me. But what's great about Cherokee Federal is how they spend their money back into the tribe and into the area of northeastern Oklahoma. The image you see here is a medical clinic that we've built in Oklahoma, in Tahlequah, the capital of the Cherokee Nation. And as you look at this picture, you're going to realize there aren't very many medical clinics in your community that look like this. I know there aren't any in mine. And these are things that we've built with the profits that we've earned from the proposals and the contracting work that we've done. It's a very remarkable accomplishment for what Cherokee Nation has been able to do. And one of the ways that we've been able to do that is from the revenues we bring in from our contracting arm. Obviously, we have gaming and entertainment and hospitality, but right now, almost the majority of the revenues coming into the Cherokee Nation are coming in through our federal contracting sector. So it's a huge honor to be able to represent the Cherokee Nation and Cherokee Nation businesses. And it's a huge, responsibility that we undertake every single day to make sure that we're doing our absolute best for the Cherokee Nation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, how the organization inside of Cherokee Federal is set up. We practice, like I said, a simple Shipley-based approach to Cherokee inside of our proposal management. So everything you see here is going to be more universally acceptable. There's no secret sauce, I promise you, for what Cherokee Federal is doing. It's just understanding how the proposal process works inside a small company and also as part of a larger enterprise. So the way our organization is set up inside the proposal department, we have proposal directors, capture managers, proposal managers, and then we, go through all of the other labor categories that are responsible for supporting proposal management. It's completely scalable depending on the size of your company. If you're a small company, you only need, one or two resources to really support the proposals effectively. As you grow, you're going to need to expand that. And the very first thing I say as a business is looking to grow its proposal department, it is an investment. It is not an expense. If you look at your proposal department as an investment, you'll get a good ROI out of that. If you look at it as an expense, you're going to feel like you're spending money, but you're not. You're earning money with every proposal you support. So how I have it set up inside of our organization is we have the department director, which is myself inside of Cherokee Federal. And I look, again, big picture. I look out across all of Cherokee Federal, our leadership in the sectors that we support, the engineering, construction, and mission solution sectors that we have. I work with our team to find subject matter expertise at the corporate level so that all of the other, quote, back offices are providing support into the proposal process, but also being able to contribute to the proposal so that, we're discriminating and we're giving ourselves the best representation inside of our proposals. Furthermore, as we're writing our proposals, we want to make sure that our support organizations are going to be able to support the contracts that we win as a result of those. So we want to make sure that we've got everybody reflected, engaged, and involved in the proposal process as a function of the organization, but also as a contributor to the victories and the contract wins that we encounter. It's very important for me that everyone looks at proposals as a winning capability. If you're looking at an opportunity and you're not thinking that it has the P-win, or you're not thinking you have the appropriate resources to go after it, it is always your best investment to walk away. So that's one of the things that we promote here at Cherokee is being able to use your tools to help you make a decision towards, whether an opportunity is worth that pursuit. Mona is really going to go into a lot of detail about how VisibleThread incorporates itself into our proposal process, and I use those words carefully. VisibleThread incorporates itself into our proposal process. We have found ways to bring VisibleThread into the process in various different ways so that the outputs of the tool is giving us information that we can glean off of for that decision-making process. So we're really looking for opportunities to qualify bids, move them through the proposal process, which Mona will talk about, and then obviously, bring in those best opportunities to win. That is, of course, the outlook and the perspective of everyone contributing to the proposal process. Find the way to win. So as I go into, what my mission is as the department director, I'm really looking for best practices, opportunities for improvement, reuse materials, streamlining activities, and taking advantage of convenience when it allows itself. I definitely support, the need for standardized content. Our best written materials are what's going to win us the next time around. How we use lessons learned from our proposal practices to drive decision-making for the next opportunities, and then using those lessons learned for training and working sessions for continual improvement, not just in the proposal process, but in the skills and development of the people who support the proposal process. Those of you who are in this business, and I saw a lot of folks registered or capture managers, proposal managers, business development folks, you know that you're in and out of the game every single day. But then we've also got program managers, recruiters, different folks in the support teams that maybe don't live in the proposal world every single day. And it's very important for me as an organization that those folks know when their time to come and support, that they know how, that they're a valuable contributor, and that they recognize that what they contribute to the process grows the organization, grows the Cherokee Nation for us most of all, but grows them as an individual so that they can take those skills, whether they stay with Cherokee or move on, take those skills and make them a better contributor to the organization overall. Those are my missions as the department director. Now, I always say there should always be capture management as part of the proposal process. Now, whether or not your organization can afford a dedicated capture manager as a job function, you can certainly use the services of an individual to fulfill the role of capture. And what that really means in the grand scheme of things is the knowledge collection that a capture manager brings to the proposal process. The capture manager is going to look for taking that opportunity from a business developer as, you know, I know government customer A is procuring this service or this capability or this product. And the capture manager's role is to really draw that out into what our solution is going to be, what our proposal is going to be. They need to understand the customer. They need to understand the customer's needs and wants, their hot buttons, their what keeps them up at night. They need to understand pricing strategies, how we can assess what it is that we're bidding against how we're proposing the price for it and make sure those are synchronized. They're looking at ways to bring in resources across the organization, subject matter experts, reviewers, contributors. And so they're really pulling the whole opportunity together into a big holistic perspective of what that proposal needs to be. And then they're going to serve as an evaluator, obviously, to make sure that what they've put together, what they've brainstormed, is really what's gotten in on paper, and it is that winning solution. And of course, it can't be done without a proposal manager. One of the very first investments I think your company needs is obviously a proposal manager. You can certainly outsource that as a small organization, but I usually do advocate that it's probably one of the first in-house resources that you want to look to as a full-time support, because you can't grow your business without a proposal. And it's so very important that, you know, when you're investing in proposal resources, that you have a stable individual who knows your business, knows your approaches, knows what your strategic plans are, what your approaches to long-term growth are. Though they work in intervals and through, you know, quiet phases of proposal development, and I use quiet ironically, it evolves into your organization's growth. And so if you have a proposal manager that is a stable support person in your organization, then you know that you can feed upon and grow upon every opportunity that individual contributes to. So again, that's why, you know, having Mona and my team, you know, very stable. I don't have a lot of turnover in my team because it's very important that that knowledge stays with the staff that we have. The proposal manager is a process manager. I don't look for proposal managers to be writers. I don't look for proposal managers to be capture managers. They're not contracts managers. They're not recruiters. They're not pricers. Proposal managers, they run the process. Proposals are an agile process. They're an iterative process. So you need somebody that kind of can swim upstream sometimes to get you where you need to go. They're responsible for coordinating the activities and the contributions into the proposal process. They work with the capture manager to develop those themes and discriminators that really bring your proposal to the forefront. They work with the other resources inside the organization, all those other labor categories I just mentioned, to make sure that all of those lines are connecting inside the proposal. And then they're going to work with facilitating color team reviews, quality assurance, and all the things that make that proposal the best product that it can be to represent your customer or your company to your customer. But not only do you want to reflect yourself in your proposal, you need to reflect your customer in your proposal. So the proposal manager understands, you know, how to use language, how to use terminology, how to incorporate themes that the reader is drawn in and is drawn to your organization as the selectee of the contract award. Obviously, with that, there's a lot on the shoulders of the proposal manager inside an organization. How do you incorporate all of the concepts that go into a proposal, from the executive summary, management approach, past performance, key personnel, technical approach, quality control, all of those elements that you see in various different solicitations. The proposal manager recognizes the strategies in how to make each one of those sections really get into the flow of the operation. So we'll show you that in a slide that we have, really documenting the proposal process as an iterative cycle where VisibleThread falls into that. And again, it's adaptable to no matter how your organization is set up. You can find the parts of the process that fit best for you. There might be parts of the process that are too complex or too involved for what it is that you're proposing or to whom you're proposing to. So you can make those judgments based on the skills of your proposal manager as to what are the best approaches for each proposal. So as I advocate a proposal team to contribute to what it is that you're bidding, these are the types of resources that you're going to need. And again, for a small business or a large business, this might not be, an individual with this job title. It might be an individual with an entirely different job title who's tasked to fulfill this role in a proposal. As your organization grows, you're going to find this is the skill set that you're going to need as part of a larger proposal operations group, which is what we have here at Cherokee. So though we have an individual, inside of our organization that fills the role or has the job of each of these responsibilities, anyone inside your organization can kind of pop in that role if you're a smaller group to really fulfill these tasks. Where I want to, help other organizations and other companies drive their proposal solution is in that solution development concept. If you're not actually creating the approach, the how you're going to respond to the government, you're going to miss out on some very valuable points in your technical evaluation. It's so very important that you have access to somebody who can dictate and illustrate, verbally, of course, what that answer is to the government's question and what's being asked in that solicitation. Your proposal manager isn't necessarily going to have that level of detail and knowledge. Your capture manager might not have that level of technical capabilities. So your solution developer bridges that gap. I always think that it's important to bring in a program manager, somebody from the operations side of your organization to contribute to your proposal, to make sure that your technical approach is executable and that your pricing strategy is reasonable, that you can actually operate the work once you win the proposal. Those of us who have been in this business for a while know that there are sometimes strategies to, buy the work, undercut the price, and get to the execution because we're interested in having that particular contract as past performance. But it's really important for an organization to understand that if you're taking that strategy, it's a viable strategy, but you still have to be able to execute the contract at the price you've been awarded. So if you've got an operations person looking at that, they're going to look at your technical proposal and your pricing strategy, and they're going to, let you know, I can work at this. It's going to be difficult. We might have staffing problems, to let you know some of the risks associated with how you're bidding that opportunity and whether it's a viable strategy, a winnable strategy. It certainly may be, but is it an executable strategy? Or are you going to have, are you going to come up against your customer in the execution? That's never what you want. That makes you kind of a one and done type of firm. You're not going to win that work back in a recompete. So it is really important that you're considering the long-term strategies in each of those proposal development activities. We work with competitive analysis. We evaluate, who we think is coming up against us. And like I said, I know there's a lot of people on this call that probably bid against us on a regular basis. So we're watching you, but you're watching us, so it's okay. We understand what it is we're up against in our bidding communities, and we use that obviously to develop our pricing strategy. So that's kind of the thought makers that go into the proposal process, those first 5 folks on that list. The next group of folks are the contributors to the success of that particular opportunity. Obviously, you know, the pricer needs to understand how to put all the pricing together. The contracts manager is going to hold you to compliance. If there is something in that proposal that is not compliant to the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR, that contracts manager is going to raise those red flags. It means you might not win. It means you might enter into a risk or a liability for your organization. And it may mean, you know, that there's a sacrifice that you need to make in order to be able to get through some of those hurdles. If it's a certified cost and price requirement, or if it's a way of assessing kind of what risks are associated with that proposal. And then you got to fill, you know, you got to route it out. You need your recruiter to find your staffing. You need a graphic artist to make those proposals pretty, because they're not always fun to read. And obviously you're writing in your desktop publishing, pull it all together. I'm going to click forward and really get into the meat and potatoes of what proposal management is, and transfer it over to Mona here in a second. But what you're really looking for, you know, to give to your proposal manager when you're bringing an opportunity is that you understand that you're bringing an opportunity that's going to win. Proposal managers work hard, long hours. They strive to win. If we're working on an opportunity that doesn't have the best win probability, whether we don't have the right key personnel, we don't have the right strategies, the proposal manager might alert you to those things. In doing that, you have to understand the customer's hot buttons. If you're not solving their problem, you're not giving them anything worth purchasing. And then obviously the communications that go around that. I could talk on this for hours, so I'm going to let it hand over to Mona, and she's going to really talk through the nuts and bolts, how we get into the proposal process. All yours, Mona.
Okay. Good morning again. Just at a high level for readiness and planning, as Marcia said, we are the recipient of customer intelligence. Anything you can get for us, like a draft RFP, all of those things help us determine how best to go ahead, how to structure that proposal response for the maximum impact. Okay, next. So from capture, we transition to proposal. We're going to distribute the RFP or RFQ to all the relevant members. And then everybody analyzes the RFP. And that is where VisibleThread comes into the process. At that point, I find that it links to more spaces in the process than you would think. Marcia, if you'll take us to the next slide. This is kind of a graphic representation of our proposal process, and it's based off Shipley. It's nothing you haven't seen before. But all those VisibleThread dots are places where VisibleThread fits into the process. And as you can see, there are a fair number of them. We're going to drill down to them next. So these are all places VisibleThread fits in the process and smooths the process and expedites the process. And if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about how. So it's in your risk review. And at that point, you're looking at FARs, and we're running it against the risk dictionary. So there are things that absolutely we're going to look for in compliance issues and insurance issues. We ran a risk request on a proposal yesterday because it's something we are new to with a new entity. So that helps us determine whether we need one. We also use it in concept tracking in the Q&A review. We'll talk a little bit more about concept tracking in just a second. Again, for preparing the sub-K RFPs, we use concept tracking in the FAR review. For the red team review, it's a tool that allows us to check for readability, to make sure that we've included all of the concepts that were critical to the customer. And it also allows us to run an incredible acronym list. In the preliminary contract risk and compliance, that group is able to use this against their risk dictionary. It generates a compliance matrix in minutes, when we all know that that can usually take the better part of a day. Again, it pulls your FARs for you. And then when we move down to the sub-K tech proposal completed, we move into the responsibility matrix, which is another great tool. And hold on, we're going to drill in on each of those aspects in just a minute. And then finally, for your QC fixes, again, we're looking at readability, bad language, and an acronym list. Okay, next. So proposal content support. VisibleThread is extremely useful in helping you to objectively analyze whether you have met the mail. As a proposal manager, it is challenging sometimes, the pushback that you get. Well, this is how I've always said it. This is what we do for the customer. Well, it's not you saying that's not meeting the mail. It's a very objective tool that says, here's where you're not meeting the mail, and here's how we suggest you fix it. So it strengthens the response. It allows us to keyword a little more. It also allows us to update and tailor boilerplate content. One of the ways that we do that is by using a dictionary that VisibleThread makes it really easy to generate. I ran previous proposals, pulled concepts out of that, and I am now able to run that concept dictionary against our current response to ensure that we have touched all of the points that the customer needs to touch. And simple things. I recently ran something for a capture manager who wanted to know why we didn't win. The analysis we ran through VisibleThread showed us that we had used our name 4 times as often as we had used the customer's name. Again, that's invaluable as a lessons learned. Edit and proof before red team, gold team, and final review. When you are running an analysis at red team, at gold team, sometimes you get a lot of pushback. This allows us to objectively respond to the pushback and to say, you know, having run this analysis, here's where you're off, and these are the things that you can do to fix it. So VisibleThread comes in really useful in that stage. Next. For submission support, incredibly useful. We ran an IDIQ earlier in the season with VisibleThread. It was 5 volumes. Can you imagine the manual acronym tracking in 5 volumes of a response? VisibleThread did it in minutes. It allowed us to deduplicate the list rapidly to fill in anything that we were missing, and it formatted it beautifully. So it's an incredibly useful tool. The compliance matrix, I'm sorry.
In the reps and
Compliance
certs
matrix for reps and certs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. My computer is not working, so I'm looking at a really small copy.
No.
There we go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Additional review is for consistency against other volumes. So we all know that the same people don't contribute to the technical necessarily that contribute to the pricing volume, or contribute to a contracts volume. We want to ensure that all of our responses are one voice. It's a better presentation to the customer, and VisibleThread enables you to run each section against the concept dictionary and each section against the bad language and style dictionary, and allows you to ensure that all of your parts of the presentation are compatible and comparable. So next I want to talk about the standard compliance matrix. Hours and hours of work to go through, and a lot of that is copy and paste. VisibleThread runs a compliance matrix in 15 minutes, in 5 minutes, depending on the size of the RFP. And when you've got your compliance matrix, it outputs it in Excel, which you're typically using anyway, and allows you to go through and highlight anything that's relevant and to fold up anything that's not. And then it gives you, from the massive requirements of a compliance matrix, it allows you to narrow down to what's exactly important to you. And then you can take that and run it against a responsibility matrix, and you're sending just the relevant sections of the compliance matrix to contracts, pricing, sub-Ks. So again, a very useful tool, and fast. So what I have found is that by using VisibleThread, I allow myself more time and better quality time for the thinking parts of proposal response. So I'm allowing myself to, as opposed to breaking out a compliance matrix over the course of a day, I'm allowing myself that the rest of that day, an hour to do the compliance matrix, and the rest of that day to ensuring that everybody has a good understanding of their area of responsibility for this response. Again, with a quick shred, you can take your compliance matrix and push out a responsibility matrix for all the relevant departments, and you can add a column that assigns them right on the compliance matrix. So we have no excuse for missing anything. Not that anybody ever does. So in the next slide, we'll take a look at how it builds your compliance matrix. So thanks, Grateful Dead. We've shredded content a little bit, and so this is the solicitation, and it has pulled out key concept areas in this. It gives us the category for that content, a key term, which we're going to use to go back to our dictionary, and then the comments. You know, obviously, it will say, see this section of the FAR for details here. See this section of the requirements for the detailed information on subcontract pricing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, definitely. I see a lot of Q&As coming in about, you know, how it works into the process. And I think, Mona, we'll talk about our next couple of slides real quick, but let's get, you know, moved through kind of the Cherokee way, and we'll get to the interaction and the Q&A.
Okay, so, So on the testimonials, it is fun to compare the solicitation to amendments. Again, I was able to use that last week. We got a set of draft RFPs, and then we got the final RFP. And I was able to run very quickly an analysis, a comparison line by line that allowed us to say there were absolutely no changes in this. So that generated a question to reach out to the customer and make sure that that's what they meant, because how often do you see a draft and then the RFP is exactly the same? So that gave us security, and the customer was able to confirm that, yes, indeed, the draft equaled the final, and we could proceed. The other thing that I was able to do recently is a long sentence check. We were moving into a different area of response. I typically work in the health sector, and for me to move into another sector, this was extremely useful in helping me to identify long sentences and concepts that maybe I wasn't used to looking for. It's also a time saver when we have a deadline to generate the acronym list. Mm-hmm. If you regularly run across lots of acronyms, which if you work for the federal government, you do, this will help you build a library of acronyms. In addition to shredding your response to make sure that you've addressed all the acronyms in there, we have now built a library of acronyms so that when something comes up that we don't use all the time, we have a reference for to cross-reference into that particular response. Next slide.
All right.
Before we get to Q&A, I just want to talk about really quickly that we have started the process of building a standard corporate management plan. As we're doing that, we are using VisibleThread to pull content from various sectors and make sure that we're using the best content from each, the things that are addressed by our compliance matrix and our dictionary, concept tracking dictionary. Sorry, that word just would not come to mind. Concept tracking dictionary, and allows us to build a library of those and to pull all the common threads from all the various areas we work in and come up with a management plan that is central to, that is responsive to how we actually operate. Past performance is another area where it's really helpful. When Capture or BD brings you a response, we're able to very quickly run an analysis and see and compare the analysis of our existing work to what the requirements are and ensure that we have past performance that's going to map. So from start to finish, VisibleThread has been a huge addition, and I'm eternally grateful to Marcia and the team for making it easy for us to use.
Absolutely.
Great. Well done, Marcia Mona. Really appreciate it. Well said. So we have a lot of great questions. I'm going to try and combine a couple. So right off the bat, we had some questions on dictionaries. Marcia Mona, could you just give the group one example of a dictionary that you use? And for the group's benefit, a dictionary is a collection of predetermined search terms. So to go back to the grateful, if we have any deadheads in the room, they're well known for their proposal excellence. These terms here, dominate, mountain, hill, gold, lead. Those would be search terms. And you're telling VisibleThread within this document, I want you to flag every single instance of dominate, for example. So aside from a musical reference, Marcia Mona, just give a quick example of a dictionary that you use and just throw out just a couple terms so that people can kind of get their head wrapped around that.
Okay. So again, I work a lot in the health sector. So my first dictionary was terms that we use in RFPs. And I ran some RFPs. I ran some previous submissions. I was able to pull all the concepts out of that, and it was able to drop that into a dictionary very quickly. So now I have this dictionary that I run my new submissions against to make sure that, again, we are using the terms that the customer is using, that we have addressed all of the requirements for not dominating the rap, or for spending a little time on the mountain. It's going to search, it searched for all of my common health terms and has allowed me to map our responses to those health terms. So I think dictionaries are one of the most powerful tools. I cannot lie. I have to tell you, I was really blown away with the acronym first. That was the first thing, because it was just an immediate payback. But now that I've worked through the program a little more, the niceties are perfect for if you work on a particular sector, or if you don't work on a particular sector and then it comes up. Then you have the opportunity to run your solicitation and and to pull a dictionary and then to run your response against that dictionary and make sure that you have indeed hit the mark.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Mona. A lot of good dictionary questions. Let me quickly, I see one about a risk dictionary and one about are there like existing kind of out-of-the-box dictionaries?
Yes.
Right. So let me just use a quick example from the process flow. So like for risk review, for example, there could be export terms you're looking for. There could be intellectual property or security terms. I want to see top secret, classified. I'm looking for technical, data, limited rights, government purpose rights for those of us in the federal space. Where is intellectual property at risk? Where am I at risk of the Department of Justice kicking my door down because we didn't realize this is a top secret effort? Whoops, and we don't have the right clearances in place. So that's kind of another example, a specific example from a risk perspective where dictionaries can play. Regarding, are there out-of-the-box dictionaries? Absolutely. In a standard VisibleThread subscription, we have some kind of canned dictionaries. We have a dictionary marketplace on our website, but I would just caveat that and say that the dictionaries are most powerful when they're tailored to your context. What's risky to one company or organization might not be risky to another. My win themes are different than Mona's win themes. So the out-of-the-box dictionaries are a great starting point, but I encourage all customers to think about their context and really tailor them and make them their own. So that should take care of the dictionary examples. Let me keep moving. There's actually one question that I'm fanatical about and might have an out-of-body experience here. And it's the best question here, I think. So Garrett asked, when you're using VisibleThread to understand the requirements, when you're automating kind of pulling the requirements into Excel, are you losing the meaning of the requirements? It's painful to go through line by line through a statement of work and pull those requirements out. But, by the time I'm done through a traumatic experience, I know what's in there. I have an intimate knowledge of what the requirements are. So essentially, do we lose things in translation? I argue no. And then I'll let Mona and Marcia kind of chime in there too. But at a high level, you'll never hear me say, don't read requirements. VisibleThread is a force multiplier. Because we're getting the requirements into an actionable format for you, you can spend time actually reading through the requirements. What do they mean? And structuring your response, your pricing, your negotiation strategy. So I would argue it helps you more quickly read through those requirements. Marcia, Mona, anything to add there? You do this every day.
Yeah, and I saw a few questions on that same, does the automation replace? No, it enhances. It provides a time-saving efficiency using VisibleThread and what the tools it provides in the terms of dictionaries and the compliance matrices and all of those things. So as Mona addressed, the proposal manager can focus on content. So it doesn't take away from your individuality and your perception as a proposal manager. It enhances what it is you see, so you see it faster, so you can move on and get actionable actions and tasks out of what VisibleThread is bringing to your attention using those dictionaries. So, sometimes the section K can go on for miles and you only need to fill in 2 clauses. They're going to laser focus you into that. You still need to know what the rest of those clauses are. You still need to have the understanding, but you don't need to use your eye time trying to find what it is, that you actually need to pinpoint an answer for.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Let's see. Oh, man, there's 2 good ones. Okay. How do you use VisibleThread to compare kind of current opportunities against your past performance library? I've heard VisibleThread say we're not a repository. Can you guys just kind of give a specific example of how you do that? And then I certainly can chime in as well, but want to hear from the users first.
So I upload in our current space, and then I upload in our prospective space, and I run a compare on the 2 documents. And that will tell me everywhere it has something in common so that I can focus on those. And then at the end of the day, you kind of add up all of your matches, and that helps you to evaluate whether you want to pursue that opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Mona. And just from a high level too, in my experience with a lot of our customers, ultimately, you have a vast, for the sake of argument, past proposal library. Not every single proposal is going to be like a best fit. We generally know, by customer, by deliverable, maybe by contract type, for the sake of argument. Out of 100 proposals for this current RFP, there might be 10 that could be relevant. Let's take those 10 from our library, upload them into VisibleThread, do a gap analysis against your current RFP, and we can say, okay, proposals A and B, those look like they're the most promising. Let's pull content from those and tailor it. I don't need to really look at the other 8. So ultimately, we're not a document repository because we trust our users to understand where things best fit. And you just take snippets and drop it in. You do your analysis, you export, you do your work. So really good question there in the logistics of a theme or a topic that's really relevant to a lot of customers. Really good questions, guys. Well done on a January Tuesday. I have an interesting.
It's February, Kyle.
Yeah.
I want to touch on, Kyle, the time saving.
Oh, sure.
I saw a few questions on that. And obviously from my position, I did need to sell VisibleThread to leadership so that they understood, the ROI on the investment. And there's an absolute ROI in time saving. But again, as I said, it's not time saving. You're not opening up more time so that you can do more proposals. You're opening up more time so you can do that proposal better and increase your P-win for that individual opportunity. And so, as Mona and a couple of other folks on the team have been able to incorporate just minor attributes of VisibleThread or the outputs at Red Team review in the readability assessment. Now we're not getting Red Team comments back with grammar edits. VisibleThread is doing that for us so that we're getting better Red Team reviews. When we're giving the writing suggestions back to the contributors, they're becoming better writers as a result of that. So its intrinsic value is you're making a better operation so that you have an increased P-win. You're not increasing your ability to do more things. If anything, you might get a little work-life balance back out of it. As opposed to, the ability to do more work. Anyone who's ever worked with me has always said, I don't want to do more proposals. I want to do the same amount of proposals better. So we win more because it's not about activity. It's about, the victory at the end. So it is an investment. VisibleThread has some different, packages and tools that are tailored to what your particular company might need. You might not need the full package. You might just need Visible Docs or a piece of the package. But it is, really looking at what your budget is for your proposal department. It might replace a coordinator FTE cost kind of at the end of the day, but you're still going to need that service. So there's a trade-off associated with it. But the value that we're finding in VisibleThread is not even that it gives us more time. It gives us time back to do something else better. That's really where the trade-off is with VisibleThread.
See, Marcia, so it sounds like it's a time and a quality benefit here because we're taking that opportunity cost or that save time and we can invest in better output. Is that a correct characterization?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And you have the ability to run those proposals back through. You get a debrief from a government you didn't win. You want to know why. Run it back through. Did you not have the right keywords? Did you not use the right terminology? Did you miss an important section of the proposal? It's great for the lessons learned, but let's run that at Red Team and get the proposal better before it gets out the door.
Awesome. Let's see. So we have 5 minutes. We can get through a few more questions. I have one. I'm going to kind of combine a couple that are getting at the same theme, I think. So if we go back to kind of the full up process, let's kind of talk to those businesses that maybe don't have as formal or as delineated of a process. We see where VisibleThread fits in. You mentioned in your presentation, Marcia, the word scalable. For some businesses, this might seem daunting. Well, gosh, we're not here yet. And now all of a sudden we're deploying VisibleThread kind of throughout all these different variables. Can you speak to how you scaled it? Rome's never built in a day. How did you attack your process and where VisibleThread fits in to kind of just lay out the timeline, because I'm assuming, you didn't just engage with us and all of a sudden you're using it here, here, and here.
No, not at all. And we're still learning and we're still adapting to different places that VisibleThread brings value. And the great thing was when we were going through our trial and we were working with the training team in VisibleThread, let's cut off, the easiest bite that we can chew is acronyms. It's the first thing that you're going to find value in VisibleThread, and it's valuable for every single proposal. It takes time away from your editors and it gives you time back. Then we expanded that into the dictionaries and the compliance matrices to really take some of the processes that we were undertaking that took more time and transitioning those into VisibleThread so that we're learning the output that VisibleThread gives us. And then we're finding, okay, well, if it does that, now how can we use it for this? And so again, we transitioned that over to creating the FAR dictionary and building off of what VisibleThread already provided. So now our contracts team is moving into using VisibleThread for their work. When we look at comparing requirements for key personnel resumes, that brings value to the recruiting team. And so we're expanding the capabilities of VisibleThread across the enterprise. But if we didn't have all of those resources, I would still use VisibleThread for those functions. Because if you don't have a resource doing that job, now you have a tool to supplement the resource that you've picked or voluntold to do that job. So it is very iterative and scalable. And as you find more use for VisibleThread, then you only need to bring in an additional seat, or you can trade your seat. So you're not adding investment cost to be able to use the tool at that time as well.
Great, thanks.
And I'd like to say something really quickly about the training. Very, very user-friendly. Meet you where you live. The team supported us tremendously as we rolled this out. So we had kind of a weekly Friday. What did you work on this week? What did you get stuck on? And that was very useful because my peers were using it and we all got stuck in different areas. So we ended up learning a lot about the tool as a whole. And then the other thing is, when I was first running into, I know I can do this, but I'm not sure exactly how, our customer service rep literally was an email away. I mean, I just reached out and said, I'm trying to figure this out. And the next thing you know, I get a Zoom invite and we walk through it together and it's done. So in that way, I think VisibleThread is another way that they add to the usability of their product.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Let's, we've got time for one more. I think I can combine a couple. Does the dictionary give definitions? And I think there was a question about the comments as well. So just to kind of go back to that one example, this is the dictionary term, this would be the description, and this is tailored by the user. So to use that like export or security example again, if this was like top secret, for example, the description or comment would be engage your security team before you do anything else. That's once again where the dictionaries are tailored to your context, what matters to you. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that for a moment. So you're ultimately in control of what you look for and what the actual comment or description, that can be ownership as well. Certain terms could be, who do you need to go contact? Maybe it references a certain part of the proposal volume. Like I said, very contextual. And to Mona's point, that's where the customer success team comes in. We'll work with you to understand your context and process, and we can swap some stories. And hopefully, no one's too traumatized over, thinking about all the acronyms they've had to go through. But we're here to help. So we're at time. Really excellent questions. I apologize if we couldn't get through all of them. This recording and the slide deck will be provided to all registrants. There were a lot of questions on that as well. So I will pause there. Apologies we couldn't get to all the Q&As. I hope you found this as engaging and as educational, as I did. So thank you, Marcia and Mona. Really appreciate your time, your partnership, and your good work.
Absolutely, and likewise. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.